Shalom, and welcome to Midrash. Well, actually, not Midrash U. I'm so used to saying that. Tonight is the adult education. It's Tuesday, November 30th, 25th of Kislev, and we are celebrating the first night of Hanukkah according to and if you can hit the record button on the camera. Perfect. There we go. We're celebrating the first night. There's also one on the side here. I'll show you. You can either, I think it's this one. Yep, it's on. There we go. We're up in the sound booth because my transmitter for speaking from the podium has taken a walkabout to places unknown. Well, actually, it's still here, but it just doesn't work. Anyway, it is the first night of Hanukkah for the year 5782. And we're going to go through a little bit of Hanukkah teaching tonight. This Friday I will be giving the Erev Shabbat message, and I'm going to focus that message on things that we can glean from the Maccabean revolt, but particularly from the time frame in which the Antichrist and Antiochus Epiphanes is a type of the Antichrist, the sorts of things that we can expect and really lessons that we can learn from that time frame. So join us on Erev Shabbat this Friday evening. If I can find, there's my mouse, yay. Okay, so Hanukkah begins tonight. Tonight is November 30th, and we are 2 days later than the rabbinic keeping of Hanukkah, and the reason for that is that we stick to a lunar calendar tied to the Aviv Barley in Jerusalem, and the rabbinics have a calendar of convenience. They have been adjusting that for the last several hundred years in order to make sure that that Passover doesn't occur in a time frame that becomes inconvenient. And I would just say that we stick to the biblical prescription of when it is that we are supposed to be doing those things. So it will begin tonight. It is an 8-night celebration, and the end of the 8th day, remember our evenings, when the sun goes down, the day begins. And so tonight is the beginning of the first day of Hanukkah, and the conclusion of the 8th day of Hanukkah will be on December 8th as the sun goes down. All right. So again, when we look at that from the Hebraic calendar, it's the 25th of Kislev this year through the 3rd of Tevet. And that's with the accounting of when the next Rosh Chodesh is going to occur for the month of Tevet, which will be Sunday night. I would encourage you to join us here at 6:30. We will be having a Hanukkah celebration out in the fellowship hall where we light up all our Hanukkahs and enjoy that time of fellowship. It's always spectacular. Bring your Hanukkah glasses, which make those wonderful stars of David's, and your Hanukkahs so that you can join us on that evening as we celebrate Hanukkah together in fellowship. All right. So question always becomes, how do you spell Hanukkah? And the short answer is, in Hebrew, you spell it the same way every single time. And however, when we look at that in the English, what we see is a large variability in the spellings. We can get spellings that include a CH at the front or an H, an N or a double N towards the middle, a double K or a K, and an A or an AH at the very end. And so makes for great fun because you can spell it differently about a whole bunch of times and confuse your friends, which always is fun for me. But it's a chet, a nun, a kaf, and a hey that make up the spelling for in the Hebrew alphabet for Hanukkah, and of course that means dedication. If you want to wish somebody a happy Hanukkah, you can say Hanukkah Sameach, which is Happy Hanukkah, or Chag Sameach, which is Happy Holiday. You can do Chag Urim Sameach, which is Happy Lights Holiday. And again, if you join us here on Rosh Chodesh at 6:30 p.m. in the fellowship hall, you can join in our Hanukkah celebration and 30 minutes later, at 7 p.m., we will be celebrating our Rosh Chodesh in the sanctuary. And of course, the Rosh Chodesh will be live streamed. The celebration of the 6th night of Hanukkah will not be. So 7 p.m. if you're going to join us online. So where do we find the book of Maccabees in our Bible? Good question. And the short answer to that is really depends on who you're associated and whose Bible you're looking at. And not just that, but what year is it? We have the King James Bible, which had the apocryphal books listed in it for many, many years. In the 17 and 1800s, many of those books were dropped. And the other question is it canonical? Is it considered inspired word of God, or is it not? When we look at the Roman Catholics, the Eastern Orthodox, the Oriental Orthodox, the Roman Catholics no longer consider 3rd Maccabees and 4th Maccabees to be anything but apocryphal and therefore not canonical. However, the Eastern Orthodox do consider it a canonical book, as do the Oriental Orthodox from Egypt. And when we look at the Jews do not consider the Maccabees to be inspired, but they do consider it to be apocryphal, useful for teaching and insights, but not necessarily inspired. The leanings of the Protestants since the Reformation, particularly with the leanings of Martin Luther, have been to not include it as part of the books that are canonical. And there are many different reasons cited for this. The one that gets cited most frequently is that the apocryphal books do not show up in the New Testament. However, that statement, though made early and often, actually is not at all true, and we'll briefly look at that. Of course, Martin Luther was a Catholic, but he starts the Reformation. All right, well, okay, why isn't the Maccabees included within our Messianic or Masoretic text? Excuse me, not Messianic, but the Masoretic text. It was included in the Septuagint, and remember that the Septuagint is the Greek version, the Greek language version of the Bible, of the Old Testament and Jewish writings. Okay, and the question becomes, why is it not considered canon if it was there? You have to remember that in 70 AD, we have the fall of Jerusalem, and it is going to become a dividing line in history according to what's occurring. And of course, the other big dividing line is Christ himself. And so the Septuagint actually dates back to 282 BC. That's kind of the beginning of it. It's not when it was completed. The Maccabean revolt occurs in the 160s of BC. And the Septuagint is not completed until about 40 years later. And so to some degree, these two things are contemporaneous. The writing of the Septuagint and the inclusion of the Maccabees within. All right. Well, with the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, you have the Romans who are laying siege to the city with the expectation that they will take the city and take prisoners and or kill people. You have, of course, at that time, two groups. Yeshua has walked the earth. He's been born. He has walked the earth. He was crucified. He was raised again, and he has ascended to the throne with God the Father. And Christianity, as we would call it, is growing. As they understood it, there was this sect of Jews who saw Yeshua as the Messiah, right? Because locally, this is a Jewish issue, as Yeshua was a Jewish man. So you have these factions that have arisen within the society of the Jews. You have those that are the Sadducees. You have those that are the Pharisees. The Pharisees represented the people more rural and synagogues, and the Sadducees represented those of the Hasmonean generation and those that have come from the Hasmoneans. Hasmoneans are the people of the Maccabees. That is the reign that gets begun, that is begun in that time frame. And so we have the Roman general Vespasian, who allows Rabbi Yohanan ben Yakkai, who was the leader of the Pharisees, to leave Jerusalem and to leave it under a truce, to take all their possessions and to set up a community out in Yavne, which was a port on the Mediterranean, where they would then set up the new seat of Jewish thought, with the expectation that the old seat is about to get annihilated. They there reconvened the great Sanhedrin. We should put that in quotes, because though the Pharisees were allowed to leave, the Sadducees were not. And so the Sadducees are going to disappear as a people group within the Jewish community with the conclusion of the siege of Jerusalem and the carnage that then occurs. Okay? And this is seen as the beginnings of rabbinic Judaism. Well, the question still arises, well, how come there is no Maccabees? And there are lots of theories. I will give you my 2 cents worth on it shortly. But one of the theories that's bandied around is that only Hebrew texts were included in the Tanakh, that is going to get formalized at the Council of Jamnia in 90 A.D. And this council is called at Yarneh. They are going to bring in the Jewish leaders, and they're going to set what books are in the Tanakh. It is also thought that maybe they inherited a pre-existing list of recognized canon. You have, of course, the political rivalry between the Sadducees, who were the Maccabeans or the Hasmoneans, and their opposition to the Pharisees. And of course, it's the Pharisees who still exist and the Sadducees who do not. And it's the Pharisees who are convening this council. You also have the issue that it's only 20 years since all of Judea was horribly treated by the Romans. Large numbers of people were killed. The diaspora has begun. There's a smaller diaspora that's going to begin when many of the Jews are taken captive, but much of Judea is killed, and of course Jerusalem is sacked. And the question becomes, do you include books in your canon that inspire rebellion against the Romans by their very nature, that they talk about the rebellion of the Jews against the peoples of the Seleucids? And then there is this theory that this was a rejection of the Septuagint.